Welcome to this tutorial where I'm going to show you how I do a gouache plein air of the beautiful Columbia River Gorge in white salmon. Me and my husband did a little trip there one weekend around the Hood River area and white salmon area, and we just pulled over in this little kind of nice neighborhood cul-de-sac, and there's this really nice view. So I just set up right by the side of my car by the trunk and did a little painting. And this is a 4x8 painting, and you can see I've already have my sketch here. And I'm just toning it with some lemon yellow, actually, just because I want it to get a slightly lighter, slightly cooler undertone, and just experiment with some different undertones. I usually do yellow ochre underneath. I usually do like a warm tone, especially in overcast days, because I think that warm tone can really be really helpful. I'm going to talk a little bit about the colors on my palette as I'm mixing. Part of the bottom's a little bit cut off, but from top left going clockwise, you can see I have white, lemon yellow, I have yellow deep, I think permanent yellow deep, yellow ochre, opera pink, alizarin crimson. I have this wisteria color from Daniel Smith that I really like. I'm using brilliant green right underneath that. And I believe I also have sky blue, ultramarine, linden green, and lavender. Now I am using a combo of Turner paints and Daniel Smith, and I actually don't think I use Winsor & Newton this time, maybe just for the white. But I'm trying out Turner paints and I really like them. They're these long skinny tubes and I think they last quite long too. And so yeah, definitely give Turner paints a try. And I would say Daniel Smith has some pretty good cool gouache colors too in their gouache line. I know they're known for their watercolors, but they have some really cool gouache colors, and I really like lavender, which you can see in the very bottom left, and I like wisteria, which is that kind of purplish color under that the alizarin crimson red. So sometimes I like to mix those because I like to mix those in with my greens. Now a little bit about this this scene that we have right here. It is an overcast scene. So the tricky part was that there's not a strong light source, right? So I think the trick was to really capture the nuance in those greens that I saw. And you'll see that I don't have Viridian actually on my palette. I rarely use Viridian actually because it's kind of hard to squeeze out of the tube sometimes. So I actually like to use brilliant green and tone it down with alizarin crimson, the complement, some purples like wisteria, I forgot I also squeezed spectrum violet, which is on the bottom there to the right of the ultramarine. So I like to kind of tone down my greens in that way. Now, what I'm doing right now is you can see that I'm doing a really quick block in. And yes, there's a lot of foliage going on. There's a house there with the rooftop that I'm leaving the tone because that's going to help me see my light and dark shapes easier that way. And I'm just trying to quickly use my flat brush, my 1-inch flat brush, to just block in all those layers of greens. Now we have the foliage in the foreground in front of the house. Then there's this distant hill in the back behind the house. And then there's this other cliff that is behind that cliff. And then to the left of the river, you can see all those layers of those blue cliffs. So I think capturing that subtle atmosphere is going to be really key and tricky, because I think as it's overcast, you don't get as much as that atmosphere, that blue atmosphere as you would on a sunny day, pushing things back. So things do feel a little bit closer. And I think getting the nuance in those values and especially the temperature is going to be key, because I find that if you mix too many saturated greens in the midground or foreground, those colors come forward too much, and then it doesn't feel like those cliffs are being pushed in the back as much, and you kind of take away that feeling of atmosphere. So you can see just how I'm mixing right now on my palette. I'm trying to get that nuance, and I do kind of mix a little bit too heavy-handed a lot of the time, I will say. So I'm constantly trying to edit and lighten, and sometimes I'll mix too much red and it becomes too warm, and then I put a little bit too much violet and then it's too warm. So the trick is to know how to deviate and how to balance, right? Balance back those colors when you accidentally mix too much of one color. It's not the end of the world. It's just about balancing the colors, right? And knowing what to mix back in, whether it's the complement, what to tone down that color with. So I rarely use Payne's gray or black, although I do have them, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but I just like to, especially on days like these, mix my grays through my complements. Sometimes I'll change my palette too, and sometimes I'll have quinacridone magenta. Sometimes I'll, just use a little bit of opera pink. I don't know. So it depends kind of on my mood. And sometimes I'll really strip down the palette even more and just maybe have the primaries like white, alizarin crimson, yellow ochre, ultramarine, and that's it. And so that can be a really fun exercise as well. So you're seeing the block in right now. It might really look like nothing because I'm really just trying to get all the main masses in and trying to capture as much nuance in the green as possible. But I know that I'll have to edit and tweak as I go along the way. So in the beginning, as you've seen a lot of my other gouache tutorials, I like to use a flat brush, and then I'll kind of move to a round brush later, which you see on the left of my palette. Now, if you're interested in learning more about gouache painting, I will say I cover all the basics of gouache painting in my course, Essentials of Painting. So in that course, you get both digital tutorials and gouache tutorials, and I cover the fundamentals of painting in both mediums. So if you're looking for much longer tutorials, I have those in my course, Essentials of Painting, which can be found on Proco now, the on-demand version. The guided track version is on my website, where you can learn the course but also meet with me once a month for 2 hours, and it's a 4-month curriculum. So definitely check that out if you're interested. I have many more gouache tutorials on my course there. Now, a common question I get is what I mix on. Right now, I'm mixing on plexiglass that my husband cut for me, and I'm using Leon Holmes' Joey palette, which I really like. It's, I'm gonna say maybe like 8 by 10 inches. About 8 by 10 inches, really portable. And I just cut my own plexiglass that I got from Home Depot, and I mix on top of that. It's a lot easier to clean. I have since stopped using the Stahl wet palette that I know I used to use all the time for plein air, just because the sponge kind of dries up, and I like mixing on a plexiglass better, and I don't clean this palette every time. I probably clean it once a month, and I like to reuse the colors in the middle. So I'll squeeze new colors each time. It gets a little bit kind of crazy, but I'll squeeze new colors around the edge, and then I'll re-wet and reuse the colors in the middle. Sometimes I will have to clean the middle just a little bit because I do struggle. Like if I don't have enough space to get those lightest lights, that is a concern. And I do have to have a space where I can mix my lightest lights, or else it'll just get diluted and it'll pick up the color underneath. And then that's not good, right? Because then you won't get your lightest lights like in the river right now and in the sky. So I usually have an area, usually on the bottom left for that, but if that gets dirty somehow, then it's a good idea to clean some of those areas off. But more often than not, I really like to reuse my colors in the middle because I find it much easier to start from grays from any painting and then build up my saturation from there. So instead of working reversely, where I put down more saturated colors and add grays, I build my painting off of grays and then slowly add more saturation as needed. Now, in this case, in this overcast painting, there's not a whole lot of saturation going on. You do see the local colors of a lot of the foliage, but it's not as saturated as one would think. And so I did have to desaturate this clip a little bit because the camera was kind of just blowing out the colors a little bit. But just keep in mind that, a lot of the times what you think you see is really saturated, you should tone down a little bit in nature. Now what I'm doing now is I'm just quickly blocking in those cliffs on the left, those beautiful atmospheric cliffs. I use a lot of lavender from Daniel Smith mixed with a little bit of sky blue and a lot of white. And now I'm just using the water to carve out those cliffs a little bit more, those layers, those little inlets or whatever you call them. And so that's a trick I use a lot. I just paint a little bit thicker and I just carve my shapes in like that. Now I have to block in the house a little bit, and I'm trying to be pretty clean with the edges in the house just because that's the only kind of geometric shape that's going on, and so that's going to stand out against all the other more organic foliage. So I know that being slower here and having that clean edge is really going to help me in the long run, so I don't have to cover up messy edges and repaint over. And so if that's something that you struggle with, it's just a matter of slowing down, and it's just a matter of knowing where you need to keep your straights clean and taking a flat brush and really being able to carve out those graphic shapes a little bit more. Another technique that I really like to do is that I like to use shapes to carve out foliage as well. So what I mean by that is that the egg-shaped tree on the left there, I blocked in a general shape, but then I use the water to carve in and create nuances in the edges a little bit more. And I find that way a lot easier to create interesting foliage shapes, instead of kind of trying to get a perfect shape the first time with a round brush and slowing down that way. So that's kind of a little trick that I use as well. Now you can see I've switched to my round brush, and I'm just starting to add some darks. Now you can see I'm mixing a lot of warms in my darks. So I like to mix alizarin crimson, spectrum purple. The trick is not to be too heavy-handed, and just a little bit of warmth can go a long way. Too much and it'll start to feel a little bit weird, but just a little bit of warmth can just kind of bring that foliage a little bit forward. So I'm just kind of experimenting with that. You can see even when I put opera pink in, that it kind of gets diluted with all the other greens and it becomes much more muted. And so sometimes that's a trick I use. I don't know if it's successful or not, but I'm just kind of playing around with that. And sometimes, I'll just put a little bit of opera pink, a little bit of alizarin crimson, just to play around with a little bit of those warm, shadowy tones that you see, that you probably can't see in the photo reference on the bottom right, but that I could feel when I was looking at the actual scene in front of me. As we jump to the close-up of this painting, hopefully you can see a little more nuance in all the temperatures of the foliage that I'm trying to capture. It probably looks really different from the reference, partly because the iPhone just changes colors, crushes shadows, and desaturates things a little bit. And so you can see just those little peaks of warmth that I have in the foreground and the midground cliffs on the right. And honestly, I don't love this painting, to be honest, but it was just so nice to get out there and paint and just be in my element. And I feel like sometimes when I'm just painting and enjoying myself and just enjoying the sounds of nature, like I don't care how my painting turns out, it's just so relaxing and so fun and just so cathartic, and I just love it. And so I was just having a really peaceful time painting this painting and being able to look at such a gorgeous scene. And even though there was times where I'm like, I don't know if I can get that color right, it was just so fun. You can see now I'm working on that back cliff right now, and I am struggling to get those values. If I step back, I think those those dark bluish values that I have indicating the treetops are a little bit too dark, and I'm going to try to lighten it later. And right now I will say the lighter colors I'm putting on are too warm. That linden green is a little bit too warm, I think, that I'm mixing in. And so I feel like that cliff is coming forward too much. So sometimes what I'll do to fix that is I'll mix a little bit of blue to cool it down and white to desaturate. And sometimes that will help. But right now it feels too warm, a little bit too green and too warm. And I think that green kind of desaturates more as we go into the distance. And so really subtle things like that can push things forward too much. Or sometimes if you have something too desaturated, it can push things back too much. So it really depends. And you really have to practice kind of tuning in your eye to those subtle temperature shifts. You can see I'm now just kind of going back and bringing in some darker areas in the foliage. Foliage is something that is really hard to do, I will say. Capturing masses of foliage, especially different kinds of trees, and making it feel organic, but also not just thrown about, for lack of a better word, can be quite tricky. So it's this kind of fine line of grouping things, pulling out certain leaves, and pushing things back. It's like grouping and pulling certain things out, that kind of back and forth that I think helps with defining foliage a little bit more. So I'm not literally trying to paint every individual bush that I see, but I'm now trying to just add a little bit more saturation, and I think it's too saturated, so I just took it away, just to bring out some individual leaves that are being hit a little bit by that overcast light. And maybe just a little bit of those twinkling of those leaves will help to give a little bit more complexity to the foliage. But once I start adding too much, then it might start to feel too busy. So it's kind of that fine line that I don't think I have definitely gotten a hold of for sure. And I think that definitely takes a lot of practice. You can see I'm just trying to add a few more. There's lots of different temperatures of trees in the front of the house. Like some feel kind of cooler and bluer, some feel a little bit more green. So I'm just trying to capture that a little bit more. And this is a stage where I'm just slowing down a little bit, stepping back a little bit more and being like, okay, what can I do to now break up those big masses that I have and just add a little bit more complexity, a little bit more impression of detail, quote unquote. And that's what I'm assessing right now. You can see that I go back and forth with my flat brush and my round brush. I don't know what stroke I just put there. That was kind of random, and I think I'm going to take that out, like this blue thing. That kind of blue stroke that doesn't feel like anything. So I think constantly stepping back and assessing if your values are working is really important. I highly recommend that you step away, look at your painting, squint at your painting, because sometimes just looking at it too much up close, you miss a lot of things. You can see that I even have a little bit of that wisteria purple in the back cliffs. It's probably reading a little bit more saturated on this camera than in the actual painting, but sometimes I think those nice purples can be kind of nice. It's not like you see them in the actual photo, but those are things where I guess my intuition is telling me maybe that purple would feel nice against the greens, kind of as a split complementary kind of feel. So I'm not just putting down greens on greens on greens. Sometimes I find a painting can get this green syndrome because of that. And that's another reason why I like mixing in complementary colors, to just get a little bit of those shift in those temperatures. Mixing a little bit of yellow ochre and those mid-ground cliffs, just brushing it in a little bit. That can sometimes help. The trick is not to be too heavy-handed anywhere. Now just using the whites of the river a little bit to carve in some of those trees a little bit more. Like I was saying earlier, just to get a little bit more nuance in those edges. But it's just slowly kind of picking away. So some things I learned from this painting was that value definitely matters the most first, right? If I'm pinning down values that are too dark or too light, I have to fix that first and also think about then the temperature of that color that I'm putting down. Is it too warm? Is it too cool? So I'm simultaneously thinking about all those things. And those are things that I talk a lot more about in my course, Essentials of Painting. So again, if you're interested in getting a deep dive in gouache, definitely check out my course on Proko and the guided track on my website. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this quick, snappy tutorial, and I'll catch you in the next one.